Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. I'm Michael Marchuk.
And I'm Brad Hairston.
And this is our weekly pulse check on automation and AI news. As you all know, all of the links for the articles that we'll be covering today will be in the show notes. Brad, let's get emotional and talk about Emotion AI, our first article from TechCrunch. The article is titled, Emotion AI may be the next trend for business software, and that could be problematic. So we all have heard of sentiment analysis, and now they're turning this into Emotion AI. Tell me what you thought about this article.
Well, it's certainly a trend, and we've seen even some large language model providers position themselves as emotional intelligence. My solution has emotional intelligence, so we know it's out there. It's very interesting. The article does talk about the fact that, as Gen AI has evolved and now it's become very multimodal. So it's not just looking at text and deriving emotion from that. Now you can look at video, you can listen to the sound of a voice, you can look at gestures. So there are a lot more things that can collectively help a model determine the emotional state of a person in a conversation, a customer, for example.
I like the example they had that they showed there from the, what do you mean by that? Versus, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And those are same exact words,
Exactly.
but the emotion in the voice carries much different context.
Yeah, very true. The article also says that there was research back in 2019 that concluded that AI was not that accurate in determining sentiment by looking at facial movements. So there's still some skepticism about this, but I think probably the biggest point made in the article, I thought, and it was toward the end, but it was the idea that regulations themselves might provide the biggest barrier to this, because you think about the various aspects that we just talked about: voice, gestures, video, sound. All those things are very personal. They're very intrinsic to a human. And if you're using technology to derive or make conclusions based on that, I could see a lot of regulations having an issue with it, or maybe being concerned about whether the technology has certain bias built into it. So the jury's still out on this, but can it be used effectively in certain use cases, or is it needed in certain use cases, like in the customer experience, customer service realm? Absolutely. I think customers have complaints, customers get upset. And I think AI can lend help to humans by diagnosing that and maybe coaching the agents on how to respond effectively or how to write the right letter back to the customer. So there's a good use for it. I think there's just going to be some barriers, maybe regulations being one of the biggest.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's move to our second article from Tech Monitor AI. It's titled, Almost Half of Energy Firms Plan to Accelerate AI Adoption by Next Year. And they did a survey to kind of get this laggard versus leader kind of viewpoint on this. And it also goes towards not just their adoption of AI as a technology, but how they're applying it internally. So maybe you can guide us on that one too.
Yeah, this article really resonated with me because I just had on the podcast from Bain & Company, the leader of their utilities and renewable energy industry practice. And we talked about the state of the union with energy sourcing and what does the demand look like, and how is AI and some of the latest drivers in the market, how has that impacted it? And his name is Aaron Denman. And Aaron said that there is a interesting struggle right now for these companies between their decarbonization issues and then, the increasing demand for energy, which was already happening before AI exploded. So now there's even more demand for energy. So they have to make a trade-off. So I think using AI themselves makes a ton of sense to try to get more efficiencies and reduce reduce clean energy generation costs. The article says, 1.3 trillion in reduction is possible. What's interesting to me, though, is if you read through the article, the flavor of AI that these companies are charging toward is more traditional AI versus Gen AI. And the article even says at the end that there still is skepticism about the rate of return that they can get on utilizing Gen AI, but they recognize there is value in good old-fashioned AI, particularly when it relates to predictive maintenance,
Right.
and supply chain management, areas like that. So, I'm really glad to see that this sector is getting their act together around AI, that they're pursuing it. They understand that it's critical to meet the increasing demand for energy, especially with AI. I hope this continues. This sector in general has been a little bit of a laggard when you compare them to other verticals out there. So I thought it was good to see.
I agree. I think we're seeing this in a lot of the what we consider laggard kind of industries, utilities, government kind of things, where you have slower adoption cycles. But the reality is that, as you mentioned, this is, I wouldn't say it's called plain old AI, because AI is still relatively complex in terms of its implementation, but it's not generative AI. You don't have to create something new, but this whole concept of analyzing data and doing predictions for predictive maintenance, especially, is a huge saver for organizations that are having equipment that is in the field. So I think this is a very appropriate technology to be used. And I'm glad to hear that that they're getting benefit from it right now. So that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
So our last article for today is asking Claude. So you maybe soon start saying, "Hey Claude," instead of "Hey Alexa." Amazon has turned to Anthropic's AI for Alexa revamp. This article's from Reuters, and it talks how Amazon has now pivoted to using Claude to back up Alexa in terms of their capabilities. So what did you get out of this article?
Well, I'm so glad you picked this one, Michael, because as you know, my wife and I have Alexa in our home and we use it all the time. Although we're not very sophisticated users, we basically use it. I mean, we use it for a lot of very basic things. This article is about taking that up a level. And it's really interesting that Amazon has decided that their models and their AI is not doing the trick. So they need to up their game. And so they're basically outsourcing this to Anthropic and their Claude model, which is a pattern we've been seeing, right? Apple just did a deal with OpenAI to leverage ChatGPT functionality. So these big tech companies are sourcing solutions from each other in a very interesting way. The article says, that they're really trying to drive more shoppers, through Alexa. I think that's been a disappointment for them. They haven't seen the uptick in volume through that like they expected. But they also said they're going to charge $5 to $10 a month for this new version of Alexa. I can tell you we will not be doing that. But maybe some of the other 100 million users of Alexa will find it valuable enough to do. So it's a really interesting direction change here by Amazon. And they clearly feel like Alexa is critical to their go-to-market strategy. And they want to breathe new life into it. So we'll see how, a better model underneath the covers, how that really, impacts this segment for them. And if it really does drive a lot more Amazon purchases. I think they've got enough Amazon purchases as it is. I personally don't think getting those through Alexa is gonna do much. It might be a rounding error, but maybe they know more than I do.
Well, I suspect we're going to maybe see a different business model come out of it, because right now, there are lots of people who are putting down $20 a month to work with OpenAI's ChatGPT. So when you say, I'm not sure I want to do $5 or $10 on Alexa, maybe looking at it beyond that as a voice interface to Claude and just getting access to the Claude model in that same kind of commercial availability, maybe now becomes a deal because it's half price of what you're paying for ChatGPT. So who knows how we're going to look at this? Certainly driving sales may be an interesting concept. This gets back to how much is your Alexa device listening to you? To know, because perhaps now all that data that it's gathering surreptitiously is being fed through their own models, which aren't doing so well. But if they feed them through Claude, maybe they're going to get more out of it to where they can feed you the right ads when you open up your Prime TV or send messages through your devices. Yeah. So we'll see. It's a very interesting concept for sure.
And I will tell you, often my wife and I will ask Alexa a question, and it just spins in oblivion and comes back and says, I can't answer that. Sorry. So it is frustrating. It's not as powerful as the models you and I use on our laptops or on our devices. But would I pay $5 to $10 a month to get those answers through Alexa? No, I would. I'm not going to do that. But we'll see. We'll see what the rest of the market thinks about that, and if they think it's really that valuable.
So that means you've canceled your ChatGPT subscription?
My freebie version of ChatGPT that I use, I get enough value from that, honestly, and I use it in a safe manner, so I don't get into trouble. But I think this will be an interesting to keep our eyes on and to see how it works out for Amazon.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, those are all the articles we got for today, but thank you everyone for joining us. And as you know, all the links are in the show notes. Please join us next week for our next Pulse Check, and also all the other great content that we're continually producing with wonderful guests that you all love. So we'll see you all next time.